Imagine if each morning when you wake up, you're smiling and looking forward to your day, knowing you are happy even while you're dealing with grief and loss. The Grief and Happiness podcast inspires, comforts, and supports you with each new episode. I'm Emily Thoreau-Threat, welcoming you to explore with me your life of endless possibilities. Aloha! I'm so glad that you came to join us today. You are going to love this book and this lovely lady who wrote it. The book is called The Sunshine Effect. And when I saw the title of it, I thought, oh, that sounds like something I want to read because it's so positive. And I love to read things that are positive that I can get a lot out of and put into action in my life. And that's what this kind of book is. So you're really going to like this. So this is Renee Dutton, the author of this book. And welcome, Renee. I'm so glad you're here today.
Hi, thank you, Emily. What a pleasure to be here. I admire you, and I'm just thrilled to be on here with you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really enjoyed your book. Usually when I'm getting ready for a podcast, I go through and I mark some things and I take some notes and I'm already in with yours. I just kept writing because I kept saying, oh, I want to remember that because it was all really good. And first of all, I liked the way you set the book up, that you had the three common elements in every chapter, where you started with, oh, no, I just had it and it disappeared. Yeah. The way they're labeled. I can't believe that pic. I had it right here before we started talking.
So I start with a personal story.
Yeah. But they have different names. The name of the story.
Yeah. So there are 22 chapters. Every chapter has a different title, but there are actually 22 chapters in my life. And that's 50% of the chapter. And then 25% is the science behind what I'm telling you to do is actually really going to work. And it was so funny because I wrote the entire book just based on my life. And then my publisher said, you can't do that. You have to prove this. You cannot just go around saying that. And then I went and I Googled it. Out of 120 scientific things, I found 120 of them instantly. So everything I was saying that I felt and lived in my life was true, and it's now backed by science. So that's 25%. And the other 25% of the book are action steps that you can take that apply directly to your situation, whether losing a loved one or whatever it is that you're dealing with as a human in this difficult day of living. Right.
Yeah. And it's just beautiful the way you tied it all together. And I found my list, fortunately. And that first thing, that your story that you're talking about, it was labeled a positive catalyst for each chapter. Right. And I love that just the word catalyst, it shows, okay, this is what it's all about, that is inspired you to talk about what you're talking about in that chapter. And it just made it all make so much sense. And it felt so personal. And I felt like you were talking directly to me. And it was yeah. And I love that.
You and anything else who cared, right?
Yeah. It's so, because I kind of write that way too, because I'm better, and I had kind of the opposite of experience. Instead of where your publisher told you to prove it, when we were going through the editing process, they're saying you're talking too much about yourself. You got to be talking about them. So I really had to look at it, because I thought that what I was using was explaining, giving an example of what it was that I was talking about, where the way you set it up with the story first and then proved it, essentially, it really worked. It was really a great way to write your book. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it was about me too. It was.
Yeah.
The first half of the chapters, it's more like a novel. some of it, depending on which chapter you're hitting. But it was, and I'm not comfortable talking about myself either. So kudos to those who are. Because with our publisher, we have a common publisher for one of our books, too, I think. She's all about telling your story and all about sharing so that we know we're all going through this. But I don't really enjoy talking about my stories. But then you get more comfortable, right?
And yeah, the way that you told him was right. It's one of the things that I wrote here is the effect of stories I told myself, and I like that. So you're not just telling stories. There's a reason for whatever it is that you're telling, and the effects. It kind of shows people whatever they say. Your words have consequences, or your actions have consequences.
They really, really do. And that's a whole nother story. But
yes. and you've got the power lies within you to create a positive life. And that, I think, is the main message here, that we can all do this. We can overcome so much that you wouldn't have dreamed that you were even going to have that kind of experience, but you can overcome it and make your life positive. And that's kind of the message I was getting through the whole book that I really loved.
Thank you. Well, that was the message. But I do want to say that when you are in so much grief, which you understand, or so much pain or so much suffering, it's hard to get our bodies and our brains to cooperate. It's like I love my children. I love my rose bushes. I love the sunset, but you don't really feel that in your body. That's more your brain trying to get you to feel okay when you just don't. And when you've been through trauma or a lot of suffering, your body gets off. It's in fight or flight. And I'm just going to assume most people can figure out what that is, or if you want me to explain it, I can.
No, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah.
All right. So at some point, there were times when I was like, okay, God, I know I'm here for a reason, but I need a crumb. I just need to feel better. I cannot do what I know I'm supposed to do and feel, because I'm just feeling anxious, feeling sad, feeling out of whack. And that's when I just was on a mission to learn how to calm down the nervous system, to change the brain. Neuroplasticity is a very real thing. And again, if I start spewing stuff that doesn't make sense, just stop me.
Well, yeah, neuroplasticity, I think, is a very interesting concept. Could you explain that so our readers can understand?
Sure. So your brain kind of goes into autopilot based on what it's used to doing, thinking, experiencing. And then when you become incredibly conscious and you catch every thought, you catch every feeling, you catch your body becoming anxious. For me, I'd be like, now. Okay, if we're on podcast, they couldn't just see that, but yeah. But you are consciously understanding what you're thinking and feeling, and you are directing it towards attempting to feel and think about something that brings you more joy or more happiness or more gratitude, appreciation, and your body will start calming down. And in the book, again, there are times where I talk about me being, so I'm an empath, incredibly sensitive to every emotion, every thought. I feel you here. I feel everybody all the time. Those of us that do that don't want to do that anymore, but we do, and we have to learn how to deal with it and how to calm our bodies down. And there are all these tools I talk about in the book that help that. And once you learn how to do that, then life gets easier, and you can try to refocus. You do start feeling more joy without trying. And so everything starts settling down a little bit.
What you were saying there makes me think of something that I find myself saying often to other people when they're dealing with something is that you have to get out of your own way, because we
Get
just
out of your own body's pain.
Yeah.
Anxiety, and to all of you people out there in the world that have panic attacks. I've never had one, close to it, but I've never had a full-on panic attack. But I understand the feeling of uncomfortable and a racing heart. And it is something that you can train.
Mm-hmm.
And life gets easier. So that's part of what the sunshine effect is about. Part of it is an attitude, but part of it is teaching your body to work with you rather than against you.
Yes. Yeah, that's what came across to me, that you can have some control. I think a lot of times, for instance, in grief, when somebody you love dies, or any other kind of grief that you deal with, because you can grieve losing a job, a relationship, a home. There's lots of different kind of grief that you have in your life. And you can get a little terrified by thinking, what do I do now? Everything is unfamiliar territory, and I can't handle this. I don't know how. I haven't done it before. And if you back up from that and go, yes, I can, I can sit here and be lonely for the rest of my life, or I can go someplace where there's somebody there so that I'm not by myself. And that's the kind of things that we do have choices. A lot of times we don't think we have choices. We think we've gotten this position of the sadness or loneliness from something beyond our control, but that doesn't mean you have to stay there. And your book just offers so many ways of things that you can do to brighten your life, to bring some sunshine in, to make it more positive. And I love that.
Thank you. And the pain, the sadness, it's real.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have to be a lifetime commitment. It can be something you're going through at that moment, and you can learn how to work your way out of it. But again, I think it's working with mind, body, soul, all of it. It's all connected. And if one of them takes control, you're out, right? If your body goes down because of cancer, because you're just so sad, or if your mind, you're in that incredible depression, and all of this is real. I mean, I have not had cancer. I've had some anxiety, some sadness. I've not had full blown, but my heart goes up to those people that have, and I know it's a real thing. But I don't think it's somewhere you have to stay if you can figure out the tools. And with the internet these days, so this is what I did in all my spare time when my kids went away to college, the dog, the husband, the whole world that had to sell the house, everything left. And it was just me and time. And it was the biggest gift I've ever been given, because I had the time to learn and research everything. And I've learned everything can change if you know how to do it.
Yeah, it can change. And there's a big deal about priorities too, because we can get so bogged down with stuff. You have a whole lot of stuff, and you keep buying more stuff, and you have to store stuff, you have to pay for stuff, you have, all that sort of thing. And when you realize, at least for me, I got to the point where I realized that stuff wasn't what was important in my life. And that was so freeing. Then I could concentrate on what was important.
Yes. And I've learned that everything can be fleeting, including stuff. So been in 4 places in the last 5 years, even though I owned and remodeled my house for 22 years. In the last 5 years, I've been in 4 places. And every time I've moved, I've got rid of more stuff. And I'm like, I need it for something. I don't even know if I still have it,
Mm-hmm.
but to maybe if I never had it and I knew exactly what I had and where it was, that would free up a lot of time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is really freeing to release that. And I know when we moved here to Hawaii from the mainland, I'd accumulated years of stuff. And even though I moved a few times, it was still just lots of stuff. And I got rid of what I thought was tons of stuff. And when I got here, I realized I still have too much. And so I'm still getting rid of stuff that I don't need anymore. But for me, it makes me. I think that's really important to be able to be doing that. If someone would really appreciate something that you have, like I had a piano that nobody was playing anymore. And I love piano, and I kept thinking I was going to play it, and it just sat there. And I knew somebody who had a young daughter who wanted to take piano lessons, and I had wanted to take piano lessons so bad when I was little, and we didn't have a piano. And so I gave it to him, and I felt so good about that. When you can just give something away, then that gave me a lot more space in my house to not have that piano there that wasn't being used. So if you can look at it, doesn't have to be something as big as a piano. It can just. I complimented somebody one day that there's a group of us that get together every week, and this one girl had on this shirt that I thought was just beautiful, and I told her it was just gorgeous, and she had on the shirt was over the top of something else. She just took her shirt off and gave it to me. She goes, "I want you."
Love it.
Yeah, here, have it.
Right? It's not a big deal.
It feels so good both ways. She felt really good about giving it to me, and I was just tickled to give it. So,
okay, so I have to circle back before we continue on to the piano story and how you always wanted to play the piano. So, just to reiterate how we are all so different, and nobody's opinion or life experience is like anybody else's. So when I was, I don't know, maybe 4, definitely by 5, my parents thought I was going to be a fantastic musician. Mm-hmm. So I was required to sit at the piano with the timer for an hour with a metronome. Do you know what that is?
Metronome, yeah.
Am I saying it right? And I was miserable, and I never wanted to have a piano. And I never, as soon as I was old enough to not have to sit there with the timer and do the metronome. But so we all just have different experiences. And yes, I gave away the piano too.
And you felt good about it too, for different reasons.
I gave it away a long time ago. But yeah, so we all just have such different life experiences. And I think the one thing you didn't even ask, and it's not even the main point about the book, but the thing I really feel passionate about is perspective, and how we all unconsciously think that the way that we view situations or the world is the way that everybody else views it. And if we could all understand that none of us get each other, nobody fully understands what you're going through, right? I mean, I can say my heart goes out to you for your losses, but do I really know? I don't. I have not been in that exact situation. But the one thing I have learned is not to judge it. And I'm just fortunate that I'm able to be there. And I feel like that is a blessing. If we can all learn not to take things personally. And that's a chapter towards the end when I'm like done with the book, where I'm like, no, I got to get this in. Not take things personally, not put our opinion or perspective, because I was born and brought up in a pretty opinionated environment where you're supposed to be a certain way and act a certain way, and it's just not true. There's no definite way that we should act except to be kind. and to help each other and not to put our opinion on it. I think the opinions that I'm right, you're wrong is really messing us up.
It really is. And when you can get to that spot where you realize that it doesn't really matter what you think about somebody else or what their behavior is or what they're doing, it really isn't of consequence. And when you take responsibility for yourself and don't say, well, I have to justify everything because, I didn't do anything wrong, or it's always somebody else's fault. And, people like that. And they're never going to be happy when they're like that. When we release things that don't serve us, like things like that. I realized I was just doing something the other day, and I just started to say to myself, oh, well, it's because this happened. And I thought, no, it's not. It just happened. Give it up. That's not going to serve you to be making excuses or blaming or shaming someone else. That's not helpful.
Yeah, sometimes we feel the way we feel, and I will give a lot of slack for that. You just feel the way you feel sometimes. But if it's because of blaming or shaming, if you take that element off of it, it'll dissipate more quickly.
Yeah, it is. It's just, it kind of putting everything into perspective makes such a huge difference. Is this true? Is this really true? And if it is true, do I really need to say it, or do I really need to do something about it? It's I don't know if you've heard of Byron Katie, but she kind of has a series of questions like that when you start asking those questions, it's really kind of freeing, because you realize you don't have to carry whatever that was around. You don't have to carry an emotion or a feeling, just like the stuff we were talking about. Feelings and emotions can be heavy too, and can weigh you down. So
do I have time for a 60 to 90 second story?
Sure, please.
It's not a 10-second story. Okay, so life is kind of chapter 1 for anybody who's read chapter 1, but life is pretty much just falling apart. Everything's going away. My dad's dying. So after the kids go to college, the divorce, the giving away the puppy, my dad's in the hospital dying. And my heart I just want to help. He's suffering. I can hear his moaning, his pain, distraction. How can you distract him? And this was 10 years ago. So my phone, there are beautiful pictures on my phone. They now have music to pictures. So I pull up my phone and I'm showing my dad the beautiful scenery in the world with music. And it's like, it's a beautiful world. It's a beautiful world. And then he passes, and I keep this. It is a beautiful world. It is. There's so much beauty. We focus on our pain, our suffering, the war, the whatever, but it is a beautiful world. And I just kept doing that. And then I started blogging about it and taking pictures of all the beautiful things in the world. And before I knew it, I got forced out of my house, but I ended up in this place with a 180-degree view of the ocean, with the sun setting. I mean, you could not possibly find more beauty. So I keep blogging, I keep photographing, I keep sharing it. And then I get forced out of that, but I end up on the lake. And I was devastated, but it was perfect because I was going into COVID. And it was the perfect place to be. And then they called after I moved in, oh, we're putting in a dock. And then I get a boat for nothing, pretty much. And then the beauty in nature, the beauty in the sunset and the animals, and if you just keep focusing on whatever you focus on really is what you see. And then lately I've been more busy. I'm not as much. It's a beautiful world. I still have a great place, but I don't have that anymore. So I'm telling you, whatever you focus on is what you see, whether it shows up. I don't care how you perceive it, whatever you're comfortable with. But what you focus on does become what you see.
That's right. It becomes you, whatever
Your
that
life,
is.
being careful about how I say it, because I know different people feel differently about the way we phrase things, right?
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful world. And then every night were these incredible sunsets and on the ocean, on the lake. I didn't expect that, but being so focused on my dad and then trying to hold that, it's what I was thinking about all the time. And I ended up in the middle of it. So however you want to, if you're very analytical like me, you're going to be, but however you want to take it, I'm just saying for me, it's really important to focus on the good.
Absolutely. If that's what people take away from this conversation today, we won. That's great. Because that's where it really is. I know when I first discovered I could take pictures with my cell phone, it like opened a whole new world to me. And I'm seeing that beauty that you're describing all the time. And when I see it, I take a picture so that I can go back and look at it again. Because I just love that.
About it and sharing it with the world, and then it becomes tenfold when you share it. So I went from 100 followers in the middle of COVID to 15,000 because
oh my goodness.
Now I've been hacked and I'm locked out of Facebook. So it's okay. That's technology, right? But the world just wanted to see the ducks that came up to the patio and the sun that was setting. And I'm like, okay, it's month 4 without seeing a person other than across the street. We were in full-on lockdown. I had a respiratory thing, so my children didn't want to take a chance, and my mother's older, she wouldn't take a chance. So I literally did not see a person for 4 months, but boy, was I in the middle of beauty and nature and the ducks just coming up to my glass door, and that's a chapter 2. But yeah, life does kind of become what you expect. Not that it's always that.
Yeah, but if that's what you're looking for, that's what you're going to see. Where if you focus on the negative, that's what you're going to see. So it's really important to be mindful of the decisions that you're making along the way. And I know I'll stop whatever I'm doing when my son lives with me, and if I'm in another part of the house where he sits, he can see the sunset all the time, and he'll go, "You got to see this one." And so I grab my phone and go outside immediately. I don't wait to see whether or not it's going to happen, because those sunsets are so fleeting. They don't last for a really long time. And if I get a picture, then I can enjoy it for days. It's just wonderful. I love to see that. And I'm going through this big experience right now with, we've had a lot of dry weather on Maui, which doesn't happen. It's always been a very, very green island, and things are really turning brown. And last week I was thinking, I don't remember the last time I saw a rainbow. And I thought that one day. The next day I started seeing rainbows. And for the last 6 days, I've seen usually more than one rainbow every day. And a variety of rainbows, the giant rainbows and the double rainbows and the vivid colored rainbows and then the faint rainbows. And it's like, I'm so glad I was concentrating on that, because I can't help but smile. I can't help but just take a deep breath and relax and say that there is still beauty in the world. There's still hope. We're obviously getting some moisture that we so desperately need, and it's just being revealed in such a beautiful way. And I'm so glad I'm paying attention to that, because somebody else could be driving down the road and not even notice the rainbows up there.
Yeah. So my favorite song is Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Mm-hmm. Even though if you look at my house and other than the yellow branding, everything's white. I like it really clean. I'm not really like an orange, red, yellow, purple, but rainbows have something special. And are you photographing them? Because
yeah.
okay, good. So photograph them and share them.
Yeah, I actually did. That's what I wrote my blog about that I posted
Oh.
yesterday. And I had this picture you mentioned over the rainbow. I went to an art class last week at this beautiful art center here on the island. That it was this lovely mansion on the top of a hill. And then all around it, it has some outbuildings. And so you can go to any kind of art class you can imagine going around there. And when I started walking up to the building, I could see that I was standing kind of up on top of a hill, and I looked forward and I could see the top of a rainbow, and I thought, I'm over the rainbow.
Oh,
And so I had to take a picture of it. The picture was perfect.
Wow, that's amazing. I think I've always been under the rainbow, but
yeah, it was really neat. Well, we live on the side of Haleakala, which is a volcano that fortunately is quite quiet. So we don't really have to worry about it, but it makes it so that it's kind of steep on the way down from where we are. And we look out over the valley that goes through the middle of Maui, why it's called the Valley Isle. And because we're up high, depending on the weather and where clouds are and stuff, it's not unusual to be over the rainbow, to be looking at the top of a rainbow.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, and to look down, it's just really, to me, it excites me. You know, like you said, not many people have seen that. They're not in a physical position where it's possible.
So if you can go hike up a mountain and not get hit by lightning on your way in the rain up the mountain, then maybe you'll be over the rainbow?
You could. Yeah, if you're looking for it, you got to keep your eye out there.
Yeah, and make sure you don't have anything all attracted. Oh, well, that's amazing. Okay, I want to see that picture, please.
I will send it to you. And for those of you listening, go to my website and look at my blogs, and there's a picture of it. Because I put it with what I posted this week, because it kind of amazed me. I was so tickled that I had enough sense to get my camera out and take the picture real quick, so I didn't lose that precious moment there.
Oh, it's so much easier with cell phones, right? But tell us again, what is your website? What do we go to see that?
That one is on Loving and Living Your Way Through Grief. That was the name of my first book. I've got 2 websites, and on that one, there's a link to my blog. And I write a blog every week and always have a picture that a lot of them are pictures that I took, but I have so many beautiful pictures of here on Maui that when I just released a set of 52 cards that are cards with things on them that can help you through your grief, that were actually the things that I wrote to a friend in a note every week during her first year of grief after her husband died. And she said, you should publish this. And I'd been thinking about that for years, and we finally got it published. And on one side of each card, there's a different picture of something beautiful that I took on Maui.
So I just pulled this up yesterday for the first time, and I noticed, I just quickly looked at them, honestly, and I noticed that they had different images and different quotes, but wow, so 52 different
things that I wrote to her about. And that's actually where my books came from, because once I wrote out the 52 things, I thought that's an outline. So I have 2 books, and they each have 26 chapters in them. So that's where the 52 chapters were inspired by, were the 52 different things that I wrote to provide comfort for her.
Beautiful.
So, and those things like that can happen to anybody. You just pay attention to your inspiration. When something comes to you, don't just brush it off, but think about it and think what can result from it. It took years to develop from the idea of sending her these cards to have the cards actually realized so that other people can share them too. So things don't have to be instant. If you can't do it right now, just remember, I always wanted to do that. Well, instead of saying I always wanted to do that, do it.
Beautiful advice. Yes.
Thank you. Well, your book is so fabulous. I just think everybody needs to read it. And on the underneath the podcast here will be the links so that you can get to her book and everything that you want to know about Renee. She's just a delightful person, and you can just feel the sunshine radiating off the page when you read this book.
Thank you. Some pages. There's a down page here and there.
Yeah,
that's life, right? I mean, that's the great.
Well, it's the contrast that allows the brightness to be that bright. Because if you didn't know the other side of things, you wouldn't appreciate how beautiful and wonderful things can be.
Absolutely. Otherwise, it just feels superficial if it's just about feeling, but you have to take in all spectrums and all in order to really feel it, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, God, I've had enough lessons. I'm done. But, we don't have control. We have control over how long we stay in a bad place.
Mm-hmm.
And we have control about what we learn and the tools that we use to help us and how we take care of ourselves. But we don't have control of the world. And I think that's why the world's spinning right now, because it feels like nobody has control with all this crazy stuff going on, right?
Yeah. That's right. And so you have to focus on the positive and see what you can do in every situation to make things a little bit better.
Yes. One thought at a time, one person at a time.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you, Renee. I really appreciate this conversation and being able to talk to you today. And I know a lot of people are going to be smiling when they hear it, and that they're going to be reading your book because they know that they're going to get a lot out of it, and it's going to help them so much.
Oh, thank you, Emily. And all your books are fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, and to our listeners, I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week, and we'll have another guest that you can smile about too. It's all about being able to realize that you can be happy, and that's very important. So, thank you for listening, and aloha for this week. Do you want more comfort, support, and happiness? Join the Grief and Happiness Alliance. Visit my website at lovingandlivingyourwaythroughgrief.com and read my book, Loving and Living Your Way Through Grief. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast, rate it, review it, and binge on all our episodes on grief and happiness. I can't wait to welcome you back to another episode